Welcome one and all to episode 23 of the Coast AFL Podcast Blaze. This week, I'm actually on my own. Psyrick isn't here. He's feeling very unwell. It happened towards the end of last week's podcast recording, and he's kind of been crook all week. So unfortunately, it's just me here this week. But we will do our best to get through all 9 games and all the other information we normally talk about. This week specifically, we're going to look at the Sydney Swans and their form slump that they've hit at the moment and how they don't really look like they belong in the top 2, even though they're still sitting a game and a half in front. We talk about Hawthorn and their rise for finals chances, and the Western Bulldogs and the berth that they've kind of given themselves to have a run in the top 8. We talk about Collingwood still wanting to have a premiership defence, and then we talk about St Kilda specifically in terms of how they pretty much want to play spoiler to every other team they come up against who's still trying to fight the top 8. So let's jump over to my face. Hello, good to see you. So as you can see, it is just me. I only got 6. As you can see down here, I do have my tips. I only got 6 right this week. I'm annoyed because I had Western Bulldogs tipped to beat Sydney up there, and I changed it at the last minute, and it was frustrating to see them win because I was right, and it would have put me in top 5 in my tipping competition for work, which I need to be because there's money involved. But, we work with what we've got, right? All right, so I'm going to start with Friday night's game. I do have Psyrick's notes with me, so they're structured a little differently to how I do my own notes. I'm sure as you're kind of aware through listening to the podcast for the few months that we've been doing it. So I apologize if I'm kind of a little all over the place with Psyrick's games that he's covered. So he covered Friday night's game. He covered the Western Derby. He covered Sydney and the Western Bulldogs, and he also covered the Q Clash. So I'm going to try my best with what he's got, and like my notes are a little bit more succinct and like dot pointed, so we'll see how we go. All right, so let's start with Friday night's game of Carlton v Port Adelaide. I watched kind of half of this game personally. I watched the first quarter when I was at my appointment for my plasma donation. I did my second donation last week, hoping to try and do it every 3 weeks. It's a good thing. And then I caught the last quarter when I got home. Overall, it was very, very high stakes, as Psyrick has in his notes here. Carlton and Port were in the fight early against each other, and it kind of stayed pretty close for most of the game. There were definitely big sways forward and back throughout the competition. With Carlton missing Mackay, it meant that Charlie wasn't able to roam as much as they would have liked. They did have Lewis Young come in, but however, it wasn't to as strong of an effect as having the Twin Towers up there usually is. Port moved Miles Bergman into the back line to put Asava Radicalier in the forward line to great effect. And in the midfield, it was Chincotta tagging Butters, and Willem Drew had a soft tag on Cripps, but Cripps still had, pretty dominant performance as he normally does. Cripps had 3 goals in the second quarter, I believe. And he managed to take out some free kicks as well. We had like Alier was doing his best to try and hold on to that defense, but it was crumbling a little bit hard towards half time. Carlton managed to kick 7 unanswered goals in that quarter as well, in the second quarter specifically. And they had really strong ball movement through the middle as they normally do. Second half, Port managed to keep up and managed to pretty much go bang, bang, bang in return. The final score in the end, thanks to Horn Francis and Butters in the middle, and then the defense, of course, Alier, Zerk Thatcher, Miles Bergman, and Dan Houston stood tall to manage to give the Port forward something to work with. And the final scoreline ended up being a 9-11-65 to 11-13-79. Cripps had solid statistical numbers as he normally does, with 22 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 12 tackles, and 5 intercepts. But Willem Drew managed to cut off a lot of his run, a lot of his stronger work rate on the ball. So normally which is why he had, I'd say low. 22 is still pretty decent. But when you're looking at Patrick Cripps and players of his caliber, you would expect them to be a lot higher, which is why Willem Drew's tag was very, very good. 25. There were still 25 disposals amongst both of them. but Drew did not infringe, did not give away any free kicks against Cripps. I believe the free kicks that Cripps did get, they were from other players. Ollie Wines pretty much had the effect that Cripps wanted to have, because I don't think Wines was getting tagged. So Ollie Wines finished with 10 clearances, 26 disposals, 6 score involvements, and 10 tackles. Mitch Georgiadis up on the forward line for Port kicked 3-1, and Radaglia presented really well with 3 marks inside 50 and 2 goals of his own. I believe one was in the first quarter, and the second one was, I believe, on the siren, either on the first or the third. I can't remember, but I think it was one in one quarter, one in one half, and one in the other half. Matt Kennedy was everywhere for Carlton's offense, but only 13 disposals, but a huge amount of score involvements in 9. He was involved in pretty much majority of Carlton's scoring potentials. Jacob Wiedering was a strong wall in defense, as per normal, and managed to shut down Charlie Dixon pretty effectively. And also did some decent defensive ruck work, as they often kind of do. Carlton only had the 5-day break, which is a bit unlucky for them, and we kind of expected some of us kind of expected that they would kind of run out of pace in the fourth quarter. Myself and Psyrick, we both tipped Port Adelaide. So we did kind of see that coming. I'll be honest, we were both, again, we were both 50-50. As we mentioned last week's podcast, we were both 50-50 in terms of where we wanted to actually tip them. Being that it was at Marvel Stadium for one, and Carlton have been very, very good. But yeah, the 5-day break on Carlton does not help. Normally travel from Port Adelaide is a little 50-50, but they've been looking pretty solid recently. They've actually found a bit of form again, which is, nice. It's something that they wanted, especially if they're trying to stay in the finals race, considering how tight it is this year. We will talk about that again, as we always have. And then, yeah, the issue with Carlton, though, is that Port kept up, right? Like, Carlton didn't have Tom DeConing in the ruck, so they had to use Mark Pittonet. And whilst Pittonet is all right, he was really struggling with his matchup to Sweet, right? Sorry, I'm just catching up on the notes. I'm kind of going a bit fast for myself. The run home, as we talked about last week, for both these teams is still pretty rough, and there's a little bit of optimism for Port at the moment with this strong win, and their run home makes it look like they could potentially stay in the finals race, provided they keep on this form. However, for Carlton, this could possibly be a big swing to their issues. They were still likely to make top 8. However, keeping top 4 is going to be a big problem for them. Again, like, for Port, they do still have some issues. But if they're able to keep this at least decent consistent form, and keep building on it, especially in their defensive half, which worked fairly well this week, who knows, they might be able to stay in the top 8 race, and Ken Hinkley might still have a job. We shall see. Sorry for I'm kind of trying to run through these a little bit quickly. Again, I'm not really used to how Psyrick structures his notes, and you'll be able to tell a very, very big difference, because I'm very much more statistical in the way that I kind of analyze the game. So we're going to jump from that game to the first game from Saturday, being North Melbourne and Geelong. So the scoreline for this game was 10-6-66 to 16-10 106. Geelong beating North Melbourne down in Hobart. A game that some were kind of, I wouldn't say some, but like North Melbourne have been finding some really solid bit of form lately. Granted, they're still bottom 2, so it wasn't always going to be like a 10 out of 10 4-quarter performance, especially against Geelong, and considering how they've suddenly found a good patch of consistent form again, especially trying to stay in this finals race as well. So down in Hobart, it's a very, very mixed sort of venue. It's very different to Launceston at the same time as well. So no one was kind of really had massive guesses as to what was going to happen, but I think everyone ended up tipping Geelong anyway, just because they are in good form, and they are also, a top 8 team at this point in time.
But it was very close in the first quarter, surprisingly. But Geelong, after quarter time, just ended up putting their foot down and just ran with it the rest of the match. I'm going to highlight Tom Stewart first. We've been talking about him the last couple of weeks, especially because he's been playing midfield and then rotating into halfback, his traditional role. He had pretty solid statistical numbers, which doesn't really surprise you. He's very strong interceptor. He's very strong on ball since he's been playing mid, and it's very impressive that someone of his age as well. Like he's 30 plus off the top of my head. I know he's definitely like a pure veteran of the game. Like we all kind of know about that. So his statistics from the game that I wanted to highlight are 32 disposals, 18 contested possessions, 13 intercepts, 9 marks, 5 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 4 score involvements, 14 pressure acts, and 3 1%ers. Again, strong intercept game, which is something he's always been known for. He wasn't shut down this week, which is something that Clarko probably should have taken a look at, considering his work rate. And yeah, it kind of just it's where Geelong won the ball the most, because North Melbourne have a lot of strong run capability through the midfield, off halfback. Harry Sheezel, I'm going to talk about him in a minute, is like a very big proponent of that. George Wardlaw as well. But yeah, Tom Stewart is a great interceptor, and you need to put some kind of shutdown player on him to negate that sort of effect, to be able to have that clear run into Geelong's back half. I want to talk about Tyson Stengel and Ollie Dempsey in the forward line. They combined for 6 goals, 10 tackles, and 16 contested possessions. They were very, very strong, putting that forward pressure onto North Melbourne's defense, which allowed for some clean goal scores. A lot of good pressure from the mid to forward movement as well, just right off the bat. And yeah, North Melbourne's defense, as we've talked about for a lot of the season, North Melbourne's defense has been their weakest point. Also, a little bit of their forward line. Like again, they have Nick Larkey predominantly up there, and they definitely need either to dip into the trade period or the draft to try and find someone to be able to play up with him. I don't know what their injury situation looks like. I know they still have like Callum Coleman-Jones and players like that. They can play like the ruck forward role. As we saw in the preseason, just before Coleman-Jones did his ACL, he was playing kind of ruck forward. So he's pretty much the sort of player that they need. However, he's injured. So I definitely think that they should go into the draft or have a look at trades to see who could be available to maybe fill that role. Just in case, more injury concerns happen. Rising star from last week, Lawson Humphreys, ran hard pretty much all afternoon. He was doing a lot of hard running. He collected 21 touches at 85.7% efficiency, 7 contested possessions, 7 intercepts, 5 marks, 5 inside 50s, 5 score involvements, and 467 meters gained. Really, really impressive performance. Again, he ran the Rising Star last week. So, it wasn't as good as last week's performance, clearly, but it was very, very impressive for such a young player, that someone that, most teams also didn't really look at, and Geelong kind of found another diamond in the rough sort of thing. And yeah, I think Geelong granted, they're not technically in a rebuilding phase, even though they kind of should be. But the fact that they're still kind of staying up there and not where a lot of the other teams have been in their rebuilding phases, Richmond, it's very impressive to say the least. And it's, part of that's credit to, Chris Scott and the entire team that he has behind him. Like, it's very, very impressive that Geelong have been able to stay kind of this sort of consistent. Like, sure, maybe they don't make top 8 again this year. Fair chances that they will, just by how they look at the moment. But if they don't, that's not a bad thing, considering like where they were, not just last year, but like every team has a high and a low. Like Geelong have been on this run for finals for so long, and yeah, they won their premiership back in 2022. But also, like, you got to have a dip sometime, right? To highlight some North Melbourne players, Harry Sheezel, as I mentioned before, stunning performance. He's in beautiful form at the moment. It's unfortunate that his team can't convert effectively enough to be able to, see some more wins on the board. But they're like the whole team themselves are definitely heading in the right direction in terms of building and getting better and stuff like that. And Sheezel is a very, very big part of that. He's a very big component of the team that they have. So he collected 36 disposals at 80.6% efficiency, 25 contested possessions, 9 clearances, 14 score involvements, 16 pressure acts, 4 1%ers, and a goal. He was easily best on ground across both teams. It's just unfortunate that it was still a 40-point loss, you know? But if he was in the running for Rising Star, he would get it straight off the bat. This performance alone kind of would solidify that. However, that doesn't work that way. Tristan Sherry, I've been a big fan of him all season long. One of the best rucks in the competition right now. He finished with 54 hitouts with 15 to advantage, 25 disposals at 72% efficiency, 14 contested possessions, 6 intercept possessions, 5 marks, 3 clearances, 8 score involvements, 8 tackles, and 15 pressure acts. Again, strong ruck performance. I believe he was playing against Blitzarves for most of it. But just, yeah, he had a strong game, completely dominated Blitzarves, and just couldn't do more for a ruck, really. The only injury concern from this game was Gary Rowan, suffered a concussion. I believe it was in the second quarter, off the top of my head. So he'll miss the game coming up this week, which I will talk about later, of course, when I go through the fixture and the ladder. And yeah, overall, North Melbourne still a low team, but they're working on some things, making things kind of get better. And then for Geelong, they're trying to keep they're trying to keep a foot in the door for finals, and you can only hope that, well, for some people you might hope that they don't make it, but for others, especially Geelong supporters, you're on the right track. So I hope, who knows, you should be able to stay in there. You should be able to get there fine, but your run home is certainly interesting. All right, let's jump over to actually, let's do the Q Clash. All right, so Gold Coast Suns versus the Brisbane Lions at People First Stadium. Gold Coast Suns home game, and so most people would have expected that they would win, because they have this huge home ground streak at the moment. They haven't lost at all this season there, up until they came up against the Brisbane Lions, who have been in red hot form, probably the best team in the competition right now, considering the Swans don't look great. We would say, you could say Hawthorn could be the best team in the competition, but again, they're still young, but they're having a lot of fun, and it's thrilling to see. But I think Brisbane, and a lot of the professional commentators agree, they are probably the best team in the competition right now, especially when you go up against Dunkley, Lachie Neale, and Hugh McCluggage. So the final scoreline for this game was 9-11-65 to 13-15-93. 28-point victory for the Brisbane Lions. Again, home streak ended for the Gold Coast Suns, and it's not a good start because they definitely needed to win this game and the rest of the games in the season in order to 100% play finals. With this loss, it definitely puts it into even more doubt. Early on, Suns had a strong quarter. However, because names are hard. Ben King. I keep forgetting which one's at which team. Ben King had a lot of ball early. However, he only kicked 2-6 in conversion. Which is weird because he had Eric Hipwood as a defender this week rather than Eric Hipwood, the forward. So you can see that Eric was still really struggling in terms of how to play as a defender, especially on someone who is, a bona fide forward in Ben King. But fortunately for them, Ben King was very wasteful with his kicks. Again, 2-6. It wasn't very pretty. But after that, the Suns just crumbled, and the Lions just dominated them over and over with clearance rate and possessions. Ground ball gets was won by just under 20, but they maintain control of their uncontested ball movement. Dane Zorko and Cam Rayner were putting on a bit of a show. With Zorko having 32 disposals at 88% efficiency, 12 marks, 6 intercepts, and 9 score involvements. Cam Rayner had 25 disposals, 72% efficiency, 10 contested possessions, 6 score involvements, including a 2-1 scoreline. Lachie Neale absolutely dominated clearances as he normally does, especially if you don't tag him. It's very sad because we know the Gold Coast midfield is very, very strong. However, they always struggle to, and we know they run both ways. We've talked about this all season long, but the issue is that when the pressure is on them, they seem to crumble, and Dimmer doesn't seem to have a complete plan B for what they can do. It's like he's missing a shutdown player, right? Because Raul Flanders, I'm blanking on names. Took Miller, even though he's out at the moment. Like they're all players who are very, very strong at winning their own ball, but the issue is that they're not shutdown players. They're not tagging players. So I think that's what Dimmer's kind of missing in that midfield. And like they can shake tackles, they can make tackles, they can win contested possessions, ground balls, you name it. But when the pressure's on them, when they get tagged, when they get shut down, they seem to struggle with being able to handle that pressure, which is why a team like Brisbane is able to just run all over them. And, Lachie Neale is a very good point of that. So he had 10 clearances, a goal, 6 score involvements, 35 disposals, and 82% efficiency. Sam Flanders had 33 disposals, 16 contested possessions, and 12 ground ball gets, 7 clearances, a goal, and 6 score involvements. So again, like strong midfield game, ran both ways, but there was definitely some pressure on him at the same time. Matt Rowell tried very hard with 23 disposals, 9 clearances, 6 tackles, and a goal. Sam Collins was playing mostly on Danaher. He was really strong at taking a lot of intercepts, taking a lot of scoring opportunities from Danaher. 11 intercepts with 3 intercept marks, as well as 4 score involvements from Collins. Again, we've talked about this before. They love generating scores from intercepts. However, Brisbane are very good at shutting down with their own intercept play, especially in their own back half. And we look at this from Zorko, for example. Like he has had a brilliant season. It's like he hasn't missed a beat at all. The fact of the matter is that he's in great form. Brisbane's midfield is in great form. There's significant players in like Hipwood and Danaher. They're getting there. They have patches. But overall, Brisbane are very, very strong right now, especially in that midfield. And I feel like they are going to be that lethal going into finals if they stay on this good run of form, that they could play spoiler to some of the teams that that we kind of expected to be really strong in finals, like Sydney, which are not looking very good at the moment, and teams like that. All right, time to move on to the Saturday game at Marvel Stadium with St Kilda and Essendon. I didn't have much faith in this game overall. And as most people will know by the scoreline of 17-6, 108 to 8-7, 55, a lot of people didn't have any hope in Essendon either. The Essendon edge has dulled, and St Kilda are looking to play spoiler to anyone trying to make a finals campaign. Sorry. It's been a long day. So, I said earlier this season that I couldn't, in good faith, pretty much tip either of these teams until they showed me something, right? You can actually quote me on this. You have to go like a few episodes back, but I 100% said this. My issue with this game is that Essendon is still playing for top 8, still in the top 8 for that fact, and had strong performances. They had something to show. I had something to work with. Yeah, like they may have lost last week, and I think they lost the week before. I can't remember. But they were close games. They weren't massive blowouts. So going into this game, I thought that Essendon, if they desperately want to play finals, they are going to show up tonight. St Kilda, they have nothing to lose. They statistically they could probably make finals, but that it requires a lot of teams to lose and them to win and win by massive margins, which isn't going to happen. So they're predominantly playing spoiler to everyone else for the rest of the season, right? That makes sense. What is going? So they hit a really, really good patch of form right now, and it's kind of crazy because it's not going to result in anything apart from maybe some players resign that maybe were looking to be traded or to leave. Maybe they could look for another trade somewhere else. Maybe they'll probably go into the draft. Because again, St Kilda, they're kind of getting back there. Like last season, they made finals. Granted, they went out straight away to a strong GWS outfit, but they can still obviously show solid performances. They can obviously still play it kind of up to those better teams. Essendon, debatable. They're kind of pretenders at this point in time. But St Kilda definitely can give us something to work with. They can definitely show some promise, especially going into next season. Although, again, their 22 will probably change, and some structural things will probably change as well. Anyway, I want to talk about Rowan Marshall, first of all. He dominated the midfield against Sam Draper, finishing with 30 hitouts, 6 to advantage, 26 disposals, 13 contested possessions, 10 marks, 8 clearances, 5 score involvements, and a goal. Really, really strong ruck performance from Rowan Marshall, which isn't too uncommon. He's definitely had strong games before, but I feel like every other ruck he's gone against has kind of always beaten him to the punch a bit. But in this week, it was not the case. Jack Steele, I think, was probably best on ground for St Kilda overall, collecting 21 disposals at 90.5% efficiency, 5 contested possessions, 6 marks, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 3 goal assists, 8 score involvements, 5 tackles, and 22 pressure acts. He was on ball pretty much the entire afternoon. I can't remember what time this game was. I think it was an afternoon game. And that's what you love to see. Him and Sinclair, they combine very, very well. They always have. And this is a really strong performance that we love to see out of co-captain, right? Co-captain, captain. I can't remember which one's which. Either way, strong game performance, and we love to see it. I want to talk about Hunter Clark. He's been very underrated for a lot of the season. Again, a lot of these I wouldn't say Hunter Clark is a fringe player, but he's definitely one of those players that you don't really talk about, you don't really notice. He had a thrilling game. He was very, very electric in the contest. 20 disposals, 16 contested possessions, 8 intercept possessions, 4 clearances, 6 score involvements, and 15 pressure acts. Played really well off that mid to half back role. So definitely gave some options up forward as well. And yeah, overall, very impressive performance from St Kilda. It's just too bad that they can't do anything with it other than, maybe look a bit more favourable to players going into next season. All right. For Essendon, I want to highlight just a couple of players. Normally, you'd think players that would normally stand out a bit more anyway. But overall, it was a very, very poor game. I didn't write anything down for Xavier Dersma, but I thought Dersma had a pretty solid game off the wing. However, for the stats that I did highlight, I want to talk about Captain Zach Merritt, as we normally do. He gave it his all. He was definitely getting tagged. He got shut down pretty hard, but he still put out some pretty solid statistical performances. So 24 disposals, 8 contested possessions, 4 marks, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 5 tackles, 25 pressure acts, and 488 meters gained. He did a lot of hard running, at the very least, through the middle. Jake Stringer, he played a more midfield this week rather than forward. I think for the most part, he is normally playing in that midfield role. But when I look at the stats, he's definitely more of a forward possession
So I assume that has something to do with like Peter Wright and Kyle Langford and some of these younger players that they have floating up the forward line now. But for Stringer himself, he was definitely getting shot down as well. He finished with 19 disposals, but it's 78.9% efficiency, 12 contested possessions, 5 inside 50s, 8 clearances, 4 score involvements, 13 pressure acts, and a goal. The only injury this week was to Jordan Ridley with a corked hip. I don't know how hips recover. I know thighs normally take a week. If not, push like maybe only a couple of days, normally pushing it. But I think a hip is a little bit worse. So he probably won't be in next week, which is unlucky. But because they definitely need him in the defense. But yeah, I think the Essendon edge has definitely dulled at this point in time. And if they want to play finals, and I want to play serious finals, they need to get their head back in the game and win the next 4 games. Because their run home is really difficult. Granted, that should win all 4 of those games. But with how they played against St Kilda, there's not much hope looking at it at the moment. All right, moving on to Melbourne and GWS at the MCG. I didn't look at the crowd numbers for this one, but you look at the footage of this game, and the crowd at the MCG for this game is the exact same kind of crowd that Richmond and GWS had not like 2 weeks ago. It's 2 weeks ago? A week ago. Something like that. It's like, I understand that GWS want more game time on the MCG. That's perfectly understandable. If you're going to play finals, grand finals played on the MCG, you want as much time as you can on the MCG. It's the only way you're going to get experience of playing at that shape of a ground. But, like, I get it's winter. We're a winter sport. Everyone knows that. So why the low crowd numbers? I had friends go to this game. They had a great time. Again, they got my friend is a GWS fan, so he got to see them win. Congratulations to them. I was actually going to go to this game, but I had movie tickets for Saturday night, so I couldn't go. Sometimes double booking does screw you over. But it was really good to see this comeback from GWS. They are very, very serious about wanting to play finals this season. Wanting to, make it back after only making it to they only made it to the semis, I think, last season. I don't think they made it to the prelim. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they want to get back there. They've shown that they can play up to these stronger teams. Melbourne probably shouldn't have let them back in. They shouldn't have made it this close. And, I tipped Melbourne, so it's kind of on me. But, it was a massive finals upset. And because both teams want to play finals. But at this rate, only one of them feels like it's going to make it. So, players that I want to talk about in this game are James Peatling. I have talked about them here and there in the past. He was playing a lot of a sub role because I believe this is his first major season. I don't think he was drafted this season, but this is his first standout kind of breakout season for him. He actually started in the 22 this week, and he looked really, really good. He finished with 28 disposals at 71.4% efficiency, 18 contested possessions, 6 intercept possessions, 5 marks, 5 inside 50s, 8 clearances, 11 tackles, and 22 pressure acts. Very, very strong mid-roll. I don't think he was playing a shutdown role. I think he was just playing a pure transition in an inside mid. I don't think he's a winger, but he looked really, really good. And credit to them. Highlights showed that he was fantastic. Stats show he was fantastic, and that's what you love to see. And Adam Kingsley is very, very good at recognizing young talent. It was something that he was doing very, very well as an assistant coach at Richmond, which we have. As much as I love our Cubs, we definitely miss him. We definitely miss a lot of everyone else that kind of left. We miss Minnie, although Minnie definitely was not probably fit for the head coach role. We miss. We kind of miss Dimmer. I'm gonna be honest, but times have changed. Maybe our players' hearts are still kind of warming up to Uze.
Like, granted, he doesn't have much to work with because of an extensive injury list, which we are still working through. Sorry, I digress. GWS. I want to talk about Jesse Hogan next. He kicked 4 goals from 11 touches at 72.7% efficiency, trying to catch back up to the Coleman, but I don't think he's going to make it back in time. I think Curnow is going to win it outright at this point. 7 contested possessions, 6 marks, 6 score involvements, and 2 1%ers. Pretty much what you expect from a forward. Low disposal numbers, but high scoring shots. He did very, very well this week. Kieran Briggs had the best of Max Gawn. Max was definitely not ready to come back, as we all kind of surmised going into this game. We thought maybe that he was 100% fit because he'd already missed a week and ended up missing 2 anyway, which was not part of the plan. I definitely think he was rushed back a little early. He definitely probably should have missed this week. But had we known that this was kind of a rush back, I think more people probably would have tipped GWS over Melbourne. But, it's only a 2-point scoreline. It was a lot closer than it probably should have been, considering. But Kieran Briggs, again, had the best back score. 36 hitouts, 11 to advantage, 17 disposals overall, 10 contested possessions, 6 clearances, 9 score involvements, 18 pressure acts, 3 1%ers, and a lowly behind. But, every score matters. And as you can see, it definitely mattered in this case because of the 2-point deficit. For Melbourne, Jake Lever was a solid ball in defence, finishing with 18 touches at 88.9% efficiency, 9 contested possessions, 13 intercept possessions, 7 marks, 3 score involvements, 8 pressure acts, 4 1%ers. Stephen May finished with 11 1%ers, mind you. That was his best stat overall, but I think Jake Lever kind of surpassed him in terms of every other statistic. And 100% time on ground. Jake Lever, again, I've talked about this in the past about Jake Lever. He's pretty much the key cog in that defense. He is their captain. Well, he's not the team captain, but he's a defensive captain. He gives the orders, and that's kind of how their system works. But sometimes Melbourne's issues are definitely more than just defense. Their forwards struggle to convert, as you can see, 12-11 scoreline. Their midfield struggles to fire sometimes, especially without Petrarca at the moment. They're really, really struggling with that Petrarca. Viney is doing enough. Clary, which I'll talk about in a minute, is putting up decent games, but definitely is not as consistent as he should be. They've got Trent Rivers going through there at the moment. He's playing a solid game, but still kind of learning to play the kind of role that Petrarca had. You've got Christian Salem down there as well. Cosy Pickett going through mid-forward. You have these sorts of really strong ball players, but they're just not playing as consistently as they should be. But Clayton Oliver specifically, I think he was best on ground for the Demons. He finished with 26 disposals, 13 contested possessions, 8 inside 50s, 6 clearances, 5 tackles, 36 pressure acts, and 558 meters gained, which I believe was highest for the match. So overall, it was a strong game, strong contested game. The inaccuracies from Melbourne, which have been an issue all season long, probably why they lost this game, because they let GWS in way too close, and then they just stomped ahead. Both teams are still trying to play finals. Both teams still desperately want to play finals. But it's these sorts of games, specifically for these two teams, that it could be do or die. So, overall, GWS looking good. Melbourne need to work on their accuracy issues, right? Everyone kind of gets the gist of that now. All right, let's jump on over to the Western Derby. Again, this is Psyrick's specialty, being that he is from WA. I did want to try and get Snap on just because he was at this game. However, he was unavailable as well. So I have to kind of run through it. I didn't see much, I will be honest. All I know is that it was very, very heated game. The Eagles took control very, very early. But the Dockers managed to come back after halftime, put their mark on the game,
and successfully quelled the West Coast Eagles in nearly the second derby upset of the season, and kept their, well, I wouldn't say kept their finals chances alive. I think it's pretty solid that they're going to play finals this season. But aiming for they're still trying to aim for top 4, right? That's what their goal is right now. And if they just keep winning and kind of win convincingly, they will most definitely kind of solidify that chance. So scoreline overall was 17-8-110 to 11-9-75. Again, a very, very solid performance from West Coast early on. However, Freo's mids successful in gathering the ball and feeding it to Tracy and Frederick, who were very big benefactors in Freo's dominance, especially later in the second half. 4 marks inside 50 and 3 goals each for Tracy and Frederick. Eagles had some solid tackling pressure and good stoppage chains in an excellent first half by Tim Kelly. Again, though, in the second half, they would just get dominated by clearances. Freo's work inside 50 would also dominate Eagles' defense. Barras and Tom Cole were the only standouts in their defense. However, for the Dockers and the Glendenning Allen medal, which was given to Caleb Sarong, this is the the Derby medal. Like all sort of derbies have them. Like the one at AO, I can't remember. The Showdown, thank you, myself. I'm all sorts of out of it right now. But yeah, like the Showdown has one, Key Clash has one, Battle of the Bridge has one, and obviously the Derby has one. So the Glendenning Allen medal was given to Caleb Sarong with 32 disposals, 15 contested possessions, 10 clearances, 8 inside 50s, and 12 score involvements, and was pretty much involved in any sort of scoring opportunity through the middle to the forward line. Brayshaw was pretty close in terms of statistics with 36 disposals, 26 pressure acts, 5 clearances, and 14 score involvements. Tim Kelly was the best for the Eagles overall, with 32 disposals, 18 contested possessions, 16 ground ball gets, 5 clearances, 6 score involvements, and a goal. However, stoppage dominance by Freo was the clear winning focal point for this game overall. West Coast midfield put up some decent numbers with Elliot Yeo, Harley Reid, and Jaden Hunt. But O'Meara, Young, and Sean Darcy put up fantastic numbers overall for Freo. Eagles did a lot of back half chains, and they were kind of successful in some aspects, but Freo was just very, very good at shutting them down. And yeah, the Dockers overall won, and that's what you want to see. Like, I know I'm kind of falling back on simple explanations, right? Because I'm not used to Psyrick's style of note taking, because we're very different in terms of how we do our notes for these games. But what I like about Fremantle right now is their unwillingness to give up, and that comes from these young players like Young, like Sarong, like Jai Amos, Josh Tracy, and even from their veterans, specifically in Nat 5, because he is playing a very, very different role this season, especially since coming back from injury, although he may miss this week. I'll talk about that in a minute. But because he's not playing a kind of solo hero sort of individualistic style that he might have used to play when he was very, very dominant, very, very in form, and not as injury prone. That's his dedication to the team over individual play shows. So it's a good inspiration for the players around him, and that's kind of the identity that they are building towards. Is that it's a team effort, not like an individualistic effort, and they are very, very close to getting that first premiership. If they can keep this up, I definitely think there will be a strong chance, especially if they're able to keep top 4. But it's provided they can keep this up and try to run through the rest of the season injury-free. However, missing that 5 for a week might be an issue going into next week, but we will talk about that. All right. now that I've caught up, that's all of Saturday's games, I believe. I am blistering through this. I know I'm kind of going really, really fast, and I apologize for that. But I am definitely not used to doing this on my own. I get very nervous, as you can tell, which is why I talk very fast. If you are an audio listener, and there is an option to like turn me down to 0.075, if I'm a little too fast, please feel free to do that. For the next ones, I'm going to try and slow down just a little bit, but again, like, it's just me. I do have some other stuff I want to do tonight after this recording, so I am kind of trying to speed through this on my own. But, you know, stuff happens. I am kind of just winging this entire thing. I have notes. I do have notes in front of me. Those who have my Snapchat definitely already saw this. I might take a photo and put them... Or actually, I might show it on the socials post for this week, because even though it's Psyrick's turn to normally do it, we try to alternate these weekly. I'll probably do it this week because of the fact that it's just turning me this week. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about Sunday's games. And Collingwood and Richmond at the MCG. I did actually want to go to this game. However, something came up and I couldn't. But it wasn't very pretty. 14-9-93 to 9-13-67. Realistically, it should have been only one goal in it, but our inaccuracies up forward were not very pretty. However, Collingwood had a really, really strong halfback to mid performance, especially from Nick Dacos. They're still trying to play finals. They want to defend their premiership title. Obviously, all teams want to once they win a premiership. Do I think that they will? No. However, they are definitely giving themselves every chance that they can, and it's very commendable. As much as, you know, as a Richmond supporter, you gotta hate them with every bone in your body. That's just how it is. So, as I mentioned, Nick Dacos. We've talked about him all season long. Media's talked about him all season long. He's become a Brownlow favourite again, or maybe not a favourite, but he's a strong contender, especially with Isaac Heaney kind of dipping in form. And then you've got, you know, the only other contenders in Bontempelli and Cripps, which I still think are the two favourites, but Dacos is definitely a sneaky third chance now. It'll be very interesting to see come Brownlow night. So his statistics were finishing with a career high 42 disposals at 69% efficiency. That's pretty nice. It could have been higher, but they put him on the bench. I guess they didn't want to, you know, burn him out. Very understandable. He also finished with 18 contested possessions, 6 marks, 8 inside 50s, 11 clearances, 12 score involvements, 14 pressure acts, and 613 meters gained, which I think might have been highest for the round. I can't confirm that number, but it was definitely one of the higher meters gained this round. Overall, very, very solid performance. Dan McStay, who came back from injury, I believe, last week, kicked 3 goals from 11 touches, 5 marks, 7 score involvements, and 8 pressure acts. Solid return performance from him, you know, former Brisbane player. It always has looked good. Collingwood definitely need him back in that forward line, and it's very good that he's back for them. They didn't have to go this week, so a lot of that mid-forward transition that they normally get from Goey, they relied more on Crisp for, as well as the Dacos boys, of course, and Pendlebury, of course, who playing his 400th game next week, which I will also talk about coming up. Darcy Cameron dominated the ruck because Nankervis, he was not playing this week. That's right. I remember. Took me a moment to kick in, but yeah, there was no Nankervis this week. So our primary ruck was Samson Ryan, and as much as I love Samson Ryan, he is my goat. He is not ready to go up against some of the premier ruckmen in the competition, but he is, you know, as we've discussed, rucks and talls take the longest to cultivate in terms of form in the AFL.
That's just how it's always been. So you got to give him time. He's still working on it. We re-signed him, and I'm very happy for that. He's definitely going to become one of our better tools. You just have to give him time, just to give him the confidence to be able to do the role that he's built to do. But Darcy Cameron completely dominated in the ruck. 33 hitouts, 12 to advantage, 18 contested possessions. 18 possessions, 12 contested possessions, 6 intercepts, 2 score involvements, and a goal on his own. Overall, very, very solid performance from Collingwood, as much as I hate to say it. There's definitely still some points of contention that I want to highlight. Thankfully, it's not their defense. Darcy Moore, their captain, actually had a really solid performance this week. I believe he had high intercept possessions. I didn't write it down, but I can remember it from looking at it. I believe he had a pretty high amount of 1%ers as well. So he's back. He's finally found some form again, which is good for them. I think they're definitely still missing McCreary running off of that wing. And their forward line, despite kicking 14-9, definitely is still missing something up there. I don't know exactly what it is. Might have been Myercheck. I think Myercheck's still out. So they have to rely on Hoskin Elliott to do a lot of work up there. But now that they have McStay back, once he's back in consistent form, they'll be a lot more dominant forward team again. To talk about the Tigers, there were some positives, as they normally are. Our young Cubs, Tom Brown and Caleb Smith, kicked their first goals in their AFL careers, with Tom Brown kicking 3 for the day on top of 5 score involvements, 7 pressure acts, and 3 inside 50s. Again, I've been talking about this since we hit injury hell, is just the development of our young players. There's only been one player this entire season who hasn't missed a game. I believe it's actually Nathan Broad, off the top of my head. I can't say that for certain. I will have to actually check that. But yeah, the fact that we've played 42 players overall this season, one of them we picked up from the mid-season draft, mind you, and the other was the supplemental selection period player, being McKelty Lafau, is very, very... on one hand, it's impressive that we've been able to play our entire list, pretty much. And on the other hand, it's really sad because we have so many injuries, just so much top-tier talent, including Tim Taranto this week, who did a back injury. I don't know if it was just sort of like a niggle or something that he felt. But hopefully it's nothing too bad like Dusty's one that's been kind of plaguing him. I also want to talk about Nathan Broad, as I mentioned before. I believe he was best on ground for us this week. 27 disposals at 92.6% efficiency, 8 contested possessions, 10 intercept possessions, 15 marks, and 4 score involvements. He was completely shutting down Collingwood's kind of chains from their back half into forward 50. However, again, it just was not enough. One man can't do it all, as we've seen time and time again. In terms of where we're looking at the moment, would I like us to not be bottom last? Yeah, sure. Out of the outside top 4 would be very, very nice. But that's not happening in 4 games. Especially with who we're going up against in these last 4 games. But on the other hand, am I okay with getting a number 1 draft pick that we can develop? Yeah. You look at Josh Gibcus, for example. Yes, he's done 2 ACLs. Yes, they're not pretty. But when he's in and he's fit, he is our best defender out there. In his debut season, he played nearly every single game. He was so clean in his defensive work rate. Him and Bolter down back him, Bolter, and Tyler Young are going to be unstoppable down back if we play Bolter down back. But I think at the moment we're kind of playing Bolter more forward because I think we don't have... Well, 1, we don't have any other options. And 2, we definitely need someone to replace Tom Lynch because he's going to have to give it up. I don't think he's going to be able to make it back. Again, I've talked about this before. There are definitely some players we have on our list that need to retire. And definitely some players we need to trade. Even though, contracts may say otherwise. As much as I love Grimes,
He needs to retire. Lynch probably should retire. I'm debatable on Prestia at the moment because I think Prestia, now that he's actually in good form and he's actually quite fit, I think he could go on for another season. But I want to hopefully that actually stays consistent, like just at least going out to the rest of this season. I think he 100% has one more season in him, but it just depends on if his hamstrings will hold up. And then players to trade. We're already kind of looking at Baker wants to go home. Bolton, I think we want to keep. But I'd be okay with trading him back to WA. Daniel Rioli has looked at going to the Gold Coast, as everyone's well aware of at this point. If he goes, and we keep Bolton, I want Bolton to go on to halfback instead. I want Bolton to play Rioli's role because I think it actually will work better in terms of his game style. There are some players that we have on our list that are kind of not going anywhere. Long-term injuries. Unfortunately, they are tall players and players that we kind of actually need. I'm blanking on their names at the moment. They're former basketball players. One of them is Mate Kalina. There we go. Who is Noah Bolter's cousin. He's been on our list for like 3 or 4 years now and has been suffering with a consistent back issue. So he hasn't even debuted yet for that fact. So honestly, we should probably just let him go. And then we don't have many other options. It's just about cultivating our younger players and renewing our list in terms of getting our injuries back and keeping players fit and healthy and well conditioned. So we'll see how that happens towards the rest of the season, going into next season. Again, I can't fault Uze for where we're at the moment because you look at what we've been dealt, and he's just doing the best of what we can. That's all I can really hope for is just trying to grow our Cubs, our younger players. Hugo Ralsmith, a player that I've really, really loved. I'm glad he got re-signed. He's looking great as a winger. Pickett. Pickett should just retire, or we should just delist him. Like, I don't care what happens to him at the moment. Everything's done in terms of Pickett. McIntosh, I think probably only have one season left. If not, this will be his last. I don't know as of yet. I would love for him to stay if he's able to keep form, but he is pushing on in age. We have all these sorts of players. Some could retire, some could be traded, some could be delisted. But in terms of our younger players, the ones that we've gotten from the recent drafts, just going to keep cultivating. And I really like what we've seen so far from some of them. It's just about giving them that game time, letting them develop. And who knows, we could have the next, Dan Butler, Dan Rioli, Jason Castagna, forward line of the Mosquito fleet. That's something I would like to see again. But we shall see where that goes. All right. And before I just quickly finish up with that game, Collingwood, looking great. Just keep going. Again, keep trying to find this consistent form if you want to play finals and defend your premiership. Preferably, I prefer it if you don't. But, here's to you. All right, let's move on to the reason why this episode is titled Swandive. And it's because the Sydney Swans fell to the Western Bulldogs at the SCG. Scoreline was 7-6-48 to 12-15-87. The Bulldogs were pretty much completely dominant the entire game, giving Sydney 0 options up forward. High pressure in the midfield, especially from Bontempelli, Liberatore, and Treloar. I don't even need to look at the notes. Ed Richards had a great game. I watched most of this game before I went on to Adelaide Hawthorn. But yeah, it was just completely dominant through the midfield. And stats very, very, very much show this. I want, in the notes of Psyrick, because Psyrick covered this game, even though I did actually watch a lot of this game, he talks about their forward line first, the Bulldogs forward line. And specifically Jamara Ugle-Hagan, who has had a phenomenal season.
has been one of the best forwards, one of the best young forwards, let me say, in the competition. Probably mostly in comparison to someone like Giamis, I would say. He scored 4-1 and 3 marks inside 50. Very, very strong forward game, very dominant in the air, which is good to see. The midfield unit for the Bulldogs feasted completely. They were absolutely dominant, as I mentioned before, with Richards, Treloar, and Bontempelli very, very, very much doing a lot of the hard work. Richards did have the James Jordan tag, but still had 25 possessions, 4 clearances, 5 tackles, 7 score involvements, 1 goal, 1, and 22 pressure acts. Bont had 22 disposals, 12 contested possessions, 11 ground ball gets, 24 pressure acts, 6 clearances, 5 score involvements, and a goal. But Treloar was probably best on field, which is insane because he's been putting up some insane numbers recently as well. Might be stealing some Brownlow votes from Bontempelli, which is why this Brownlow race could be very, very interesting going into like these last couple of games. So Treloar finished with 40 disposals, 19 contested possessions, 16 ground ball gets, 12 intercepts, which was match high, 7 score involvements. Overall, very, very strong, very dominant midfield performance. Completely shut down any sort of chance that Sydney had to get their run and carry going from Heaney and from from like Golden and Warner. It's like it was just completely unstoppable from the Doggies, and that's what we want to see because they were touted as being one of the better teams this season. But they struggled with form early on, and they finally hit a good patch to where they could cause a lot of damage in finals. However, they have to still get there. They've only just made it into the 8. But whether they stay there, that remains to be seen because of how close it currently is, which I will talk about soon. The defensive work of Lobb, Caulfield, and Jones were instrumental to keeping Sydney to just 8 set shots and 7 marks inside 50. Jones himself took 6 intercept marks from 11 intercepts and still managing 5 score involvements. Matt Roberts for Sydney had plenty of ball use off half back. He got 36 disposals, 10 intercepts, 8 marks, 6 inside 50s, and a goal. Sydney could occasionally move the ball thanks to Errol Golden and Jake Lloyd on the wing, but there were lots of struggles in terms of the Doggies shutting down their passage of play. And the limited opportunities to scoring shots were not generating because the Doggies midfield was that strong. Heaney, Warner, Goulden, Adams, and Mills only had 3-3 between them, which is very embarrassing. Sydney, for their massive run that they had earlier in the season, were one of the better stoppage restricting teams in the competition, but in the last 5 games, they've become a massive liability to it. And I don't know if that's whether it's due to injury or something's just like other teams have figured them out, which I actually said a couple of weeks ago that maybe teams have started to figure out Sydney's game plan and are starting to shut them down. But, injuries could also be playing a big part. They could be missing someone massive. I know for a fact that Lewis Melican went out with injury this week. I don't know if it was super serious off the top of my head or it was just precautious. But he was taken out of this game, and I don't think it mattered too much, to be honest. I think the Doggies were just kind of going to walk away with it anyway. For the Bulldogs, as we've said before, moving Rory Lobb into defense. Granted, he was initially moved to defense just to fill some holes, but now it feels like he has kind of completely revitalized his career. He was struggling in the forward line, struggling to be consistent in the forward line when they needed him to be, and then they got they got Norton back. Ugle Hagen's found some great form, and they didn't really need him up there anymore, so they put him into defense just to fill some holes, and now it feels like it's where he kind of belongs. He's performing really, really well with intercepts and just marks in general in shutting down passages of play, especially from Sydney this week. And it's very, very impressive to see. Sorry, I need a drink. Talking a lot makes me thirsty. For the Bulldogs, Bukakarmas, very, very young defensive player, has come into his own in the latter half of this season. And he has put on some brilliant defensive performances. Early on, we thought that maybe he kind of really struggled to hold his own against some of the more stronger forwards, but now it just looks absolutely excellent is the word that I was trying to look for. And now they're up for a fight against Hawthorn in terms of breaking into this finals side, into this top 8. That's super, super close. Because you look at Hawthorn, and I'm about to talk about Hawthorn in a minute, and they look incredible. They're super fun to watch. Oh, I didn't write the scoreline down for the Hawthorn game. Let me just quickly find that. Because I know it was a massive scoreline. Sorry about this. I'm probably just going to edit this out, at least in terms of the audio edit. For the YouTube video, you can kind of just bear with me. So the scoreline for this one. Honestly, actually, you know what? I might as well just talk about it instead of writing it down. Yeah, for the Doggies, they are on a huge run right now. If they're able to keep this form and stay consistent, they will be one of the more unstoppable teams going into finals. For Sydney, what are you doing? Yeah, you're still a game and a half safe in top spot, but if you keep up this dreadful form, you are running out of time, and it's not looking good going into what's coming up next in the next couple of games. Okay, let's talk about Adelaide and Hawthorn. This was a very interesting game up to halftime, especially because it was at the Adelaide Oval. The scoreline was 8-10-58 to 19-10-124. Adelaide definitely tried to keep in it early, but the Hawks just flipped on their switch and just absolutely outrun them in the second half, which you love to see from this Hawthorn outfit. They're having so much fun. Like they're not like, yeah, every game is serious because of the fact that this is their careers. Obviously, they want to play finals. They want to be the best team in the competition. Who doesn't? But when you just watch them, they're having so much fun out there. There's a lot of smiles. There's not that much serious faces, that sort of thing. Like they enjoy and live every single moment. And I think that's something that Sam Mitchell kind of learned back from his playing days, is to just embrace it. And it's something that Dimmer taught the Richmond boys, is to just embrace the big events, embrace every game, embrace every moment, and just have fun out there. And that's what this Hawthorn team is currently doing. And they're easily the most enjoyable team in the comp. They're the most fun to watch right now. And you just can't take your eyes off them. They do so much right, and it's like really, really fun. And that's what we're missing from this game as a whole. Like, yeah, because we complain a lot about umpiring. And yeah, that's kind of like put issues on the game. Like, we've complained a lot about like the MRO and the tribunal, and even like the appeals board at the same time, and how that's kind of just ruined the game a little bit. But it's also like, just look at the players. And Hawthorn and the Doggies are very, very good at showing this. It's just showing how fun the game can be if you just let them play. Yeah, you know, you've still got to adjudicate the game. We get that. You got to still follow the rules that are in place. But if you just let them run, you just let them do what they want to do, it's a much more entertaining game. It's a much more fun game. And I think that's something that the rest of the league, and especially AFL themselves, need to take note of and embrace, is to just don't have so much control and to let the game play out. And Hawthorn and other teams that will follow them will be able to give you a much more thrilling game to watch. Again, you get more viewership, you get more people at games, and overall, it'll just be a better experience for the league as a whole. Like, don't just let the teams play how they want to play. Anyway, back to Hawthorn thumping the Crows in Adelaide to close in on a finals berth. I want to highlight, so I was watching this game.
I watched the after the Siren interview from Kath Launen. She was talking to Will Day, and they mentioned a specific player that I was probably going to mention anyway because I think it was the highest in statistics for most of the game. He's usually very, very underrated. But Connor McDonald is who I'm talking about here. He, again, as I just said before, like he was very, very underrated all season long. Like we've been talking about, we talk about Day, we talk about Ginnivan, we talk about Sicily, and I do actually talk about Day in these stats as well. But I want to highlight Connor McDonald specifically. He finished with 28 disposals at 71.4% efficiency, 9 contested possessions, 4 inside 50s, 3 goal assists, 14 score involvements, which I believe was highest for the match, 21 pressure acts, and a 2-1 scoreline. Former Port Adelaide player Carl Amon was electric through the midfield as well, collecting 21 touches, at 71.4% efficiency, 4 intercepts, 6 score involvements, 7 pressure acts, and 622 meters gained. And Will Day, as per normal, absolutely dominant in the midfield. He is one of their key components. He probably is the key component, actually, to their midfield and how they structure. He collected 20 disposals at 80% efficiency, 12 contested possessions, 7 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 7 tackles, 15 pressure acts, and a goal. Again, you just really, really love to see this team play. They are so much fun, thrilling to watch, and you kind of hope that they do make finals, because they are going to absolutely surprise the top 8. Could they go super, super deep? That remains to be seen. But will they at least put on a show doing it? Absolutely. Like, this is a team that I kind of want to support through the finals campaign. It's either going to be them, Fremantle, or the Doggies. They're like the kind of 3 main teams that I kind of want to follow in a finals campaign, especially because we're bottom of the ladder. Nothing's going to happen with us. So for Adelaide, there were definitely some highlights. Jake Saligo did a lot of work. He was easily their best on ground. Finished with 30 touches, 19 contested possessions, 5 inside 50s, 11 clearances, 6 score involvements, 31 pressure acts. Then Riley O'Brien won the rock battle against Lloyd Meek. Only slim margins, they were both very close. But O'Brien just won out, getting 45 hitouts with 15 to advantage, 14 disposals, 7 contested possessions, 5 intercepts, 5 marks, 3 clearances, 5 inside 50s, 7 score involvements, 14 pressure acts, and 6 bumper centers. Overall, Adelaide definitely have so much more to work on. They are just hoping for next season. They're definitely not making finals at this rate. I think everyone kind of figures that out by now. Again, they had injury issues of their own. They were missing Thilthorpe most of the season. They're missing Rankin still. They just lost Crouch. They're missing some key components. They just lost Dawson as well, and Jordan Butts. So all over the shop, they're kind of missing players that have been very, very important to them. Granted, their forward line is definitely kind of solidified again now. They've got Keys up there, Tex, and they've got Thilthorpe, as I just mentioned. It's just, their midfield and their backline now start to struggle. Now that they're missing key pieces. But overall, definitely some decent signs from Adelaide. There just needs to be more consistency. And unfortunately, they came up against a really, really strong Hawthorn outfit that they just couldn't do anything against. Hawthorn, keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing. I know Hawthorn supporters love what you're doing. I know, what's the word I'm looking for? Impartial supporters. So teams, so either people that don't really follow a specific team or people that follow a team that aren't destined to hate Hawthorn. Love what they're doing. Again, you're the most fun team in the comp right now. Just keep going at it. We love it. And hopefully you guys make finals because you deserve it. And that will pretty much do it for the games for the week. I'm still just trying to pay attention to any Rising Star or MRO updates, but so far it doesn't seem like there's anything. So let's run through what I do have this week in terms of reports. So Brody Hewland will miss one match for rough conduct against Lachie Neale. It's kind of innocuous, I think. I don't know if any of these are going to be challenged. I haven't actually read anything. But for the most part, it's pretty consistent across the board. Sorry, excuse me. Jack Patricelli will miss one match for rough conduct on Sean Darcy. Again, kind of the same issue. And then Nat Fife, poor innocent little Nat Fife, will miss one match for striking Jai Cully. This one was pretty obvious. It's unfortunate because he's been playing really, really well, especially for Freo, because they desperately really enjoyed having him back. However, it is just, very poor timing. Oh, actually, hang on. I actually missed one. I just brought up the MRO report from the Western Derby because I wanted to mention all the players that were fined in engaging in a brawl, which was a lot, by the way. But apparently I missed one more rough conduct mark. Jack Hutchinson from the West Coast Eagles will miss one match for rough conduct on Andrew Brayshaw, which happened in the fourth quarter of the Derby. Very, very unfortunate that I actually missed that because it would have been nice to actually have in my notes. Anyway, there was a massive brawl in the third quarter. I just want to mention how many players were fined for it. 14 players were fined for this brawl. Pretty much an even split between West Coast and Fremantle from what it looks like. But that is a lot of money going directly back into the AFL. So that's that. I believe that is everything from the tribunal. I do not have a rising star just yet, which is very unlucky. So we will now move on to the ladder. Let me bring this up. Here we are. So as you can see, there's been quite a bit of movement, actually. Sydney is still sitting in top spot, which we all kind of already knew about. They're a game and a half in front because they had a draw at some point. Yes? No. Sorry, it's the teams underneath them that had a draw. My mistake. Which are Brisbane and Fremantle. Brisbane obviously jumping into second position. Fremantle jumping into third, both on 50 points each because of their draw. Carlton has dropped down to fourth position on 48 points, there are 4 teams on 48 points at the moment, being Carlton, GWS, Geelong, and Port Adelaide. Western Bulldogs, currently now going by Footscray for retro round going into this week, are on 44 points, just sneak into the top 8. Hawthorn, very, very close behind them in 9th position, also on 44 points. Essendon have been shoved down into 10th, firmly getting kicked out of the top 8 after their insipid performances. However, they are still in, and this is very, very funny. From 1st to 15th, they have the lowest percentage, and they're sitting in 10th. Like, that is crazy. And like you can see it here. If for YouTube viewers, you can see it here. Like it's insane how it currently looks. It's pretty embarrassing too for Essendon. So they're sitting now in 10th on 42 points because of their draw. Melbourne dropped down to 11th position on 40 points. Collingwood jump up to 12th on 40 points. Only behind Melbourne on 1.1 percentage. Gold Coast Suns dropped down into 13th on 36 points, only being 1 point behind, 0.1 behind in percentage points on Melbourne, but again, a game behind. St Kilda jump up into 14th position on 32 points and 100.5 percentage. They definitely have a shot. If they keep up the form that they had against Essendon, they definitely have a shot of causing some upsets against some of these teams trying to make it back into the top 8. Or into the top 8 in general. Adelaide dropped down to 15th with this loss on 30 points plus their draw. And then the bottom 3 are the West Coast Eagles, North Melbourne, and Richmond, as we all currently know. Going into matches this week. Again, I don't have anyone to bounce off of for who to tip, so just I'm kind of just going off of my guesstimations on performances. But we're starting on Friday night's game. There are 2 Friday night games this week, with the Western Bulldogs and Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. Based on form alone, you would just 100% go the Western Bulldogs here, especially because it's at Marvel. Melbourne don't play very well at Marvel. In fact, they don't really ever play well at Marvel. They're still in decent form, but they're still trying to find their footing without Petrarca. And they're still really struggling up in their forward line. Granted, they had Bailey Fritsch up there, who has been, still very accurate in his sharpshooting for goal, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Again, it's also dependent on Max Gawn. Like, is he going to be fit? Because he definitely wasn't fit last week. In the match that they just played, obviously. So I'm going to go the Western Bulldogs on that front. You would like to think the Western Bulldogs will win comfortably. I could convincingly say at least 20 plus. But that currently remains to be seen. I don't think there are any major injuries to come in and come out from these teams. So we will just have to wait and see what teams look like. All right. The other Friday night game, the West Coast Eagles hosting the Gold Coast Suns, the second coast-to-coast match over at Optus Stadium. With how West Coast kind of performed against Fremantle, they definitely have a decent shot at playing up against the Suns and kind of embarrassing the Suns this week. The Suns desperately need to win if they want to play finals. They desperately need to win. However, I think the West Coast Eagles will surprise them. I think it's going to be close. But I'm actually leaning towards West Coast for this one. Again, like, Gold Coast still haven't won away from home. And I don't even think that this week will be the week either. So we shall see where that goes. But I'm currently leaning towards West Coast purely because it's at Optus and not over at People First Stadium. Saturday games. The Spoon Bowl has returned, however, with one different team. Instead of North Melbourne and West Coast, it is now North Melbourne and Richmond at Marvel Stadium. It being North Melbourne's home game, it being North Melbourne's last home game of the season, mind you. Granted, I believe they still actually have games at Marvel. It's just not theirs. Gonna be honest, I think North will beat us. Do I think they'll beat us by a lot? I don't think that. I think it's going to be close. However, I just think North are just in much better form at the moment. Do they have the better players? Debatable. But their system is currently working better than ours is. As much as I want to have faith in our system. And I think if we get Nankervis back, we'll definitely have a much better chance because the ruck battle between him and Tristan Cherry will be really, really fun to watch. However, I do think North are going to probably beat us overall. But don't quote me on that because I want to see what the ins and outs are for this game specifically. Geelong and Adelaide at GMHBA Stadium in Geelong. You give Geelong the clear win on that one. I don't really have to say much more about that. Geelong are in good form. Adelaide are not. Injuries are definitely playing a big part in that one. And yeah, that one's pretty simple, especially because it's in Geelong. Like, there are some teams you can play, like Geelong can play and lose against in Geelong, as we've seen. The Doggies are very good at that, for example. But I think they'll win pretty convincingly against the Crows. All right, Saturday night blockbuster at the MCG. More traditional rival battles in Collingwood and Carlton. Scott Pendlebury's 400th game, mind you. And this could be a doozy. I mean, Carlton still fighting to keep their top 4 chances alive. Collingwood very much trying to defend their premiership. This could go either way, I'll be honest. On paper, this could definitely go either way. If Mackay is back for Carlton, I definitely give them more chance. If DeGoey's back for Collingwood, I also give them more chance as well, especially in the midfield. However, I think Carlton overall will play spoiler to Pendles' 400th and just completely clear. Although I don't know if they'll completely clear. I think it'll be close. I think Collingwood will definitely get up for this game. However, I think Carlton will probably win overall. Again, this might be a game you have to look at the ins and outs for. I can't make any guarantees as to who would win on this one, but I am leaning towards Carlton. All right, now possibly game of the round. I say possibly game of the round. There's definitely one more game that I'm looking at here that could be very, very interesting. I want to scroll. Thank you very much. Port Adelaide and the Sydney Swans at Adelaide Oval. Again, as we just saw, Port Adelaide are in decent form. They finally found some footing again, and it's good to see because they have been struggling here and there, and they still are struggling here and there. Sydney look very, very beatable. Part of that's due to their injuries. Part of that's due to teams finally figuring them out. The last time Sydney was at the Adelaide Oval, Joel Amati kicked 9 goals. I don't think Port Adelaide is going to let him do that again. It was the Adelaide Oval, right? It was against Adelaide. I digress. Sydney know how to play this ground. And I think that they could actually come back and surprise them because they need to bounce back. 100% they need to bounce back. This could be the game to do it. It's going to be a very, very close margin if it is. But I think Port might have a trick up their sleeve to try and surprise them. And it's going to be a lot of hard defensive work rate coming from Zerk Thatcher and Alira especially. So we'll see how that goes. Tentatively, I am probably going to lean towards Port. But Sydney could very well surprise them. Normally I've nearly finished that can by now, but because it's just me, I just have to keep talking. All right, let's move on to Sunday's games. GWS and Hawthorn at Manuka Oval in Canberra. One of the very few Canberra games that are hosted up there. Usually always the Giants because they're pretty much considered the Canberra team, even though they're Greater Western Sydney. This is probably actual game of the round. Giants have found some good form again. Hawthorn are in stellar form. And again, they're so much fun to watch. I'm just smiling talking about them. They are really, really fun to watch. And I really, really like what they're showing. Purely based on a little bit of bias, I am leaning towards Hawthorn to win this. However, I think Manuka Oval is one of those grounds that the GWS Giants like to turn into a fortress because it's not played. Games aren't played there very often, for one. So I'd probably give the edge to Giants in terms of winning this one. And it might just be one of those games that Hawks just have no control over and they might just lose. But it's going to be a very interesting battle, especially in the midfield. You've got Tom Green and Toby Bedford. You've got up against Will Day and Connor Nash and some other players that I'm currently blanking on. Ginnivan, sorry. And it's going to be very interesting. Oh, I just realized I want to circle back to the Hawthorn Adelaide game because I realized I forgot to mention injuries. That's not the screen that I want to see. You guys saw nothing. So just quickly circling back to the Hawthorn again, there were 2 injuries from this game, and one of them might be very significant. CJ Giath for Hawthorn did his shoulder. I don't know if it's just a weak shoulder injury or if it's very significant. But it could be he's in stellar form. We know he's in stellar form, and it could have an impact as to how Hawthorn will play going up against GWS this week. And then Brodie Smith for the Crows was out late with illness, so he'll be fine and ready to play next week. Yeah, that's all. Let me go back to what we were up to. Sorry about that. Again, on the GWS game, I think they will edge out against Hawthorn. As much as I want Hawthorn to win and keep up this fun streak that they're going on, I think this might be one that will end up in a loss for them. It sucks, but I think the Giants have too much of a dominant hold on the Canberra ground, and this is going to be how it is. All right. Sunday afternoon at the MCG, Essendon versus Fremantle. Going for performance alone, you'd expect Freo to win this. You expect Freo to kind of win this pretty convincingly. Again, the Essendon edge has pretty much dulled. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it back in the next 4 games. If you're an Essendon fan, you're just hoping and praying. But again, you've seen this play out before. They do this every season over the past couple of years, and it hasn't looked great. I feel for you. I do. Because you're in the exact same position that Richmond were, which is why we got the 9th man moniker for a long time. You just like to hope that Essendon show something positive if they don't win this game. But you want it to be close, essentially. If you can't get a win, you want it to be close. And for Freo, you desperately need this win. If you want to solidify your top 4 chances, you desperately need to win. And I'm giving you the edge over that. Performance alone, strength alone, I'm giving it to Freo on this one. Especially because they actually know how to play the MCG quite well, surprisingly. They've won a lot of games at the MCG, and I want to back them up and back them in on that. All right, then the last game for the round, Marvel Stadium, Sunday afternoon, St Kilda and Brisbane. St Kilda are looking to play spoiler to Brisbane's top 2 chances, and Brisbane are looking to solidify their top 2 chances, right? Fairly simple. Battle strategy here, right? On paper, I would give this to Brisbane. Brisbane do have decent experience at Marvel Stadium. They have won there quite a few times. I can't remember if there's one recent off the top of my head. But again, this is St Kilda's home ground. They know how to play this ground really, really well. Again, they just dominated Essendon here, even though it's a neutral ground for both teams in that case. So you'd expect St Kilda to pretty much clean up in this case. However, I think Brisbane's form is way too good at the moment, and it's definitely going to be a really strong midfield battle. And Brisbane should take this win. Should. I would like to hope that it is close. I think St Kilda deserve to at least make it close. However, Brisbane should win this pretty convincingly otherwise. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting for tips for this week. So let me come back to my face. Hello. Let me just quickly update Rising Star. Rising Star has not come through yet, so I'm going to have to update you all on that in 1 sec. Going to have to update everyone on that on the socials post if that comes through just before I record that a little bit later. So that will do it for me this week. It is a short game, a short session, short podcast words, because it is just me. I did kind of speed through a lot of Psyrick's notes because him, again, as I said before, him and I do notes very, very differently. He does paragraph structuring because that's kind of what he reads when we're having our discussion, and I'll jump in here and there. Whereas I'm just dot points and specifically on player stats, and sometimes on overall stats, depending on how close it kind of is. But yeah, I think it's been pretty well otherwise, all things considered. So I want to thank you all so much for coming to hang out with me this week. I am trying to stream more often. I managed to do 3 streams last week, which I'm very, very happy about. So please feel free to go and check out my socials down below, especially my Twitch. I might not be live this Tuesday. Granted, you won't see this until Wednesday, so it's fine. But I will hopefully be alive on Wednesday, the day this episode goes live, and hopefully on the weekend as well. I'm trying to step up my stream game. I want to do three streams a week, ideally. Tuesday, obviously. Then like a second Overwatch stream or on like a Wednesday or Thursday or sometime during the actual weekdays. And then on Sunday, if I get time, or like a Saturday night, I want to do like a variety stream. Like I have my PS5 here behind me, as you all can see on the video footage. I have a bunch of games on there that I really want to stream. A couple of classic games like Sly Cooper,
Ratchet and Clank Size Matters has also come to PS5, which I really, really like because there's a PSP and a PS2 port only. And then I've also got Ghost of Tsushima that I actually finally installed. And also on my Switch, I still have Super Mario Bros. Wonder that I also want to stream. That I still haven't played, and I've had that since launch. So I might bring back Variety Sunday. I just want to try and step up my stream game. I need to try and sort some other stuff out first behind the scenes before I'm able to do that a lot more consistently. But yeah, that will do me. Thank you all so much again. Be sure to send Psyrick some love on his Instagram if you have it. Let me just bring it up. Oh no, whatever that'll do. There you go, Psyrick282. Just go check him out there. Again, thank you all so much. Send him some love. Send me some love if you want. If you have any questions or anything like that that you want us to talk about next week, please send them to us either to the podcast socials themselves or to mine or to Psyrick. We will see them and we will, if we have time, we will talk about them. If not, I might bring it up on a socials post. So yeah, thank you all so much. And I'll see you all next week for episode 24 of the Coast AFL Podcast with Blaze. So until then, have a good one.